All right, week three forum. How do you get to be president of the United States? The first thing that has to happen is you've got to win one of the party's nominations. I don't believe that we've had a third party candidate win a presidential election really since 1860 when we had a different two-party system, when the Whigs were really a major party, although they were in the process of disintegrating. So I want you to look at the chapter kind of in toto, in its whole process, and think critically about what it is that goes into a person winning a presidential nomination. Because again, the scary thing about American politics is that if you can win one of the party's nominations, you've got about a 50-50 chance of becoming president. And when you survey the number of people who have managed to win a nomination, personally, from my perspective, as somebody that studies politics a lot, I would say 60 to 70%, I would have been appalled had they actually won the presidency. And I think I can kind of say that about the folks that have won the presidency. It's not exactly a murderer's row of great statesmen. The great presidents are kind of thin on the field. There's a lot of dogs in that in that in that history of presidencies. So and then there's some oddities. Why is it that Iowa is the first state to run a caucus, and why is it that New Hampshire always gets to go first? To some extent, I think those kinds of traditions are basically just discriminatory. I don't think it's right that we allow those two states to kick off the presidential election every year. I really think we ought to consider having a more equitable distribution. I think we should go to some kind of regional format, where we divide the country up into 6 regions and we rotate, and 5 or 6 states go at a time, and you go through those 6 regions, and you try to figure out who can win the presidency. I think the fact that we're about a year out from the next nomination, the next round of nominations, and the fact that Democrats will be the ones challenging presumably an incumbent Republicans. I think it's going to be interesting on the Democratic side to see how they manage what looks to be, in all likelihood, a very crowded field of candidates. So I think there are a number of interesting questions if you look at the if you look at the study guide and look at the discussion questions. These days that increasingly soft money and super PACs are dominating. That there are hundreds of millions of dollars being spent just getting the nomination. And a lot of that money is being spent outside the framework of the campaigns. It's being spent by interest groups and wealthy individuals that want a particular outcome of our political process. And that's something that, I find very concerning. The way the media covers, all of our elections, the fact that they focus so much on horse race aspects of a campaign. Who's winning, who's losing, who's gaining ground, who's losing ground. First of all, you have to ask yourself, why do they do that? And of course, the reality, if you know that much about the way the media functions, a lot of it is because it enables them to, have a kind of objectivity. They get to be the observer. If you will, they're kind of like the guy calling a horse race, where they get to be excited and down the stretch they come, and you understand why it works that way. But you also get the sense that it's not necessarily the way the media is covering these kinds of processes is not necessarily putting voters in a good position to make informed decisions. And this is my main complaint about the nomination process, because we rely so much on, primary elections. And one of the problems is that primary elections require voters to make very careful distinctions among candidates whose positions on issues are largely identical to one another. And all too often what results is that you end up with this analysis of character, an analysis of personality. And people make voting decisions based on who they like or who they think they would like, because we don't know these people. That really creates a problem to me in terms of making rational decisions. I think that one of the reasons Donald Trump is president is that a lot of people just didn't like Hillary Clinton. And I don't think that's a good enough reason for Donald Trump to be president. But that's just me. So anyway, I think we got a lot to talk about this week, and I hope we have a good week of discussion.